I'm Kate Cherry, the Executive Director here. We have a great exhibit for you. I think it's a fine exhibit, Antoinette. Antoinette Badenhorst, right? She is the curator of the show, and Quiz, her husband, he has also been extremely beneficial and helpful through all of this. And I want to thank both of them very much. Antoinette has the connections with the potters all over the United States, and knows some very fine potters, which you see several of their works here. I was blown away when I unpackaged these. They were just a delight. It's like Christmas when you unpack a show like this quality. And it was just extremely, I had a great time day before yesterday. It was really fun. I want to introduce our guest speaker tonight. I met Malcolm many years ago. Malcolm White is a former director of the Mississippi Arts Commission. Do you want me to read all this, Malcolm?
No, you don't have to. In fact, that's quite enough.
That was plenty.
If you're happy with it,
I'm happy with it. But please give Malcolm White a big welcome.
Tell you how much I appreciate being invited here, and how much I am enjoying this show. This is remarkable work, and this is a magnificent beginning of a superior idea for the state of Mississippi. I have long been fascinated by clay, people who work in clay. The theme of what I wanted to touch on tonight is the circle of life. And the reason I'm fascinated by that topic is because I see clay symbolically as ashes to ashes and dust to dust. In Genesis it says, by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you will return. In the book of Daniel, they speak of clay feet, which I also find fascinating because I perceive that it's a paradox in this reference. Clay feet means that a person has a fundamental flaw or a weakness in their otherwise well-established being. And I do not see clay as a weakness, quite frankly, my friends. I see clay as a strength. And your gathering here tonight is a significant sign of that strength. And I welcome you, and I thank you for being here. And I know that there are people here, not only from the American South, but from all over these United States. And I think that speaks highly of the invitation and of the exhibit and of the launching of this clay conference. Long before this place was Mississippi, it was Choctaw, Chickasaw, Biloxi, Natchez, Yazoo, Pascagoula, and hundreds of other native peoples who scratched substance and creativity from the land, the water, and the skies. Fertile, foreboding, and formidable, our 2,000-year history of clay is extraordinary, and I think we should always remember that before us there were people making things of clay. I've only thrown one pot in my life, and it was a fundraiser for the Craftsmen's Guild at the Craftsman Center. Of course, my career at the Mississippi Arts Commission brought me close to this community. And as many of you know, I was in and out of government and public life for 15 years until my formal retirement in October of 2020. When I retired from those posts, I planned to never attend or speak at another conference as long as I lived. But when approached by my friend Antoinette, who no one can pronounce her last name correctly, because I had her on a radio program one time, and I think I referred to her 3 times under 3 different last names. And today on my way over here, she was featured, and this conference and this exhibit was featured on All Things Considered. Mississippi Public Broadcasting did a nice piece, and he even butchered her last name worse than I did. So don't feel bad about that. I'm sure she gets it all the time. But when Antoinette approached me and asked me to come here, I happily agreed, and I'm glad that I did. I believe the creative economy is in fact the very best of Mississippi. Our story is our greatest asset. Our art, our culture, our history, this is the thing that we exceedingly do well, and it is something that we need to do more of. The architecture, the literature, the music, the food, the visual arts, these are the things that Mississippi does well and should celebrate. We're happy that many of our neighbors from Alabama, and I think you said Louisiana, are here, and we're certainly welcoming to all of you who came from far away, like Miami and New York and other states, and it's great to have you here. We welcome each of you, and we welcome you here, and acknowledge your work and your success that you're demonstrating in lifting up claymakers, the joyful dirt merchants of this world. We're proud of you. Let's talk about the vibrant community of ceramic artists in Mississippi, the communal uplifting of one another, sharing of recipes and formulas and techniques, a small but tight-knit family of artists and artisans. We are teachers who understand art is a major avenue for teaching and learning. The great Jim Henson taught more people to read and write than all the schools in this state or any others. A teaching artist is a valuable and precious thing. Let's celebrate and encourage each other to share our gifts and our talents with each other. Consider becoming a teaching artist if you are not. The Mississippi Arts Commission has a program. Local schools need your help, and other worthy outreach in communities and nonprofits. Remember the role of the artist as a teacher. And as I thought about the Circle of Life, I wanted to share some of Joni Mitchell's 1966 folk adaptation of a song entitled The Circle Game. It's specifically interesting to me because of the town in which I'm presently located. It's a town that is embraced as part of their branding a carousel and horses and ponies. And this is the way the song goes. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captivated on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came and go round and round and round in the circle game. So no matter what you call yourself, what technique or you employ or what gear you use, whether you sprinkle ashes on exteriors of urns or create urns out of ashes or not, your work is central to our story. The story, I believe, of our greatest asset. It is one of the most fundamental and historic forms of expression and commerce known to us. So go forth, my muddy dirt merchants, and create, prosper, and teach. Yours is a noble and honorable trade, a time-honored tradition, steeped deep in the hum of Mother Earth, deep in the banks of the creeks and the rivers and the land from which we not only subsist, but flourish with flair and finesse. Your work is a vital link in the circle of life.
Thank you so much. This is delightful.
Isn't it delightful?
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you all for your attention.
Yeah.
Antoinette, do you want to speak? Or you want to
Do you
please?
think I can still speak after that?
I think you're great.
When the idea of the Clay Conference came up, the thing that jumped out to me the most is education. I've been an instructor for the best part of my life. I've not been in places behind a college, a group of college students, or in a school classroom or things like that, except for occasionally I would go into these places. But the value of teaching our children, teaching our students, teaching each other, teaching our community, uplifting each other. There's nothing that can beat that. Because if Lynn understands that my piece of art is worth this much because she cannot make it to begin with, or maybe she can, but if she understands what's going into it, she understands what my personality is like, what I convey to the rest of the world out there, then she'll have a much higher appreciation for me. We live in a world there's influences, noises, everything from everywhere around us, which is so easy to distract us and take us to places that we do not want to be, especially if we're artists. Specifically the post-its, it's got a lot to do with the postmodernism, and those influences are very, very far off from many of our lives. But sometimes we think that we need to be there in order for us to be recognized. It's the furthest from the truth, in my opinion. That is the reason why I brought you a very contemporary show in this specific case. I tried to bring you a diversity of works. This piece by Brenda Wolf, it's all pinched clay, and she created those leaves herself. She's a student of mine, and I was blown away. If you look at that little apple at the bottom photograph, where she even showed the rotten parts in it, it is so close to our current lives, because I'm sure everybody's got a rotten apple somewhere, so they got to show up. Okay. Claudia Cartee is well known in Mississippi. She's going through stages that she do different kinds of things. At this specific stage, she's looking at animals that reminds her of human figures. This guy is from Upper New York. Most of the times we want our porcelain to be fine and smooth and just enjoyable. I've heard so many times that people tell me that the work looks lusciousness to porcelain. I wanted to bring this in to show people that you do not have to be in that category, especially I think some men would like to work with porcelain, but they find it may be too feminine for their taste. So that's that juxtaposition that I wanted to bring in for you guys there. Corner. It's so nice to have his work in here. When the show was put together, we decided that we have to have our Mississippi artists in here. There's several of our artists in here that's got international recognition. This is bringing you into an international show where I think more than one Mississippi belong. Curtis is widely renowned. He teaches a lot at the Meridian in Italy, and this year he spread out. He did some other places as well. Curtis's work, please do yourself a favor, go look at his work, his website specifically. He's also one of our teaching instructors on teaching art. The quality of his work put his work in the White House at one stage. But the method that it's using to build those little patterns that he's got there, meticulously he's building them up, and then he's got this difficulty to get it fired. It takes a lot to be able to do those works. Danny is one of our presenters. I'm not going to say much about his work. He's going to talk a lot tomorrow about himself and his work, I hope. But I have to tell you, when I picked up this piece earlier today and I carried it over to the museum, it felt like I was carrying a baby. It's so smooth, and it was so nice for me to carry that. David McDonald, he's a New York artist, professor. He is striving for his roots back somewhere in Africa. And the best that he can come up with is with expression in the artwork that he's doing. Some of you that knows my very older work that I have here will recognize some of those lines that's on the works. Because that's what I used to do. It's the African influences that you cannot miss that. Once you saw it, you'll recognize it forever. Gail, where is Gail? She's our storyteller. If you ask me what is art, I will tell you it is something that you see, that you observe, that you experience in your life. And you internalize it, and after a time period, it comes out, and you give it out to the world. Gail is that person. She's been telling stories through her work. This story, it's a very, very personal piece about her brother that used to catch a fish. This is Eileen's work. All I want to say is that Eileen is an artist out of this world. I wrote about her at one stage in the Ceramics magazine, and I meant every word there that I said. The minute that you ask for Eileen to be there to assist you in helping with her work or display her work, Eileen is there for us. Also see her work out at the jury show. She helped me fill that building. Jeff Lumpkin, when I saw this piece, I said, we want it. Because it's giving us a completely different viewpoint of what ceramic art can be. Look how it comes close back. If you remember what I said in the beginning, the whole world is out there making a lot of noise. But he's bringing it back to a handbag. Tell me a man that's not held his wife's handbag before. John Albert Murphy is very particular about his name, and the reason for that is there's other John Murphys out there in the world that is also ceramic artist. The work that John is putting into his work is exquisite. If you follow him on Facebook, he's got a lot of video clips as of lately. The center part of it is precious metal materials, and it's difficult to get a very, very even layer of that. Sometimes it needs to go back 3-4 times into the kiln to get that. It's also very expensive. The gold that I put on there, I looked at the price of it this past week. It's a tiny bottle, it's the size of my thumb. It costs $55 for that little bitty bottle. I don't know which luster that is exactly that's on this piece, but you can imagine by the time that he just put the luster on there, just that centerpiece is very valuable. Larry Allen, many people know him. Once again, he's also seeking for his roots back in Africa. And when I saw that piece, I saw Ndebele. The Ndebele tribe is a very colorful tribe in Africa. And I think in the process of trying to find what they need, those lines are constantly coming out, those ethnic lines. Larry Hopkins is a new artist to me. I was surprised with what he put out for us, and you had to look a few times around the piece before you started seeing the face that came out of it. I did not pay attention to how he made it. I assume that it's a wool tone piece. Once again, you do not have to stick to just round pieces and just simple pieces. You can start building different ideas and different effects on your work as you go on. Lou Perosi is a professor of art in ceramics in Oakton. He's a long time inspirational artist for me. He's one of those people that used his experiences as a child, and he thought through his brain and he brought it out in these kind of parts. In the previous century, you had the grotesque farm implements. And as they started wearing out, they just landed in everywhere in the field. And on his grandfather's farm was many of those. And that's where the whole idea of the iron, using the iron and making it. But what's beautiful about it is that it's also referencing to the functionality of clay. like our cups and plates and teapots that we have in our kitchens. Mark Gaudi was extremely good as an artist already when he did one of my classes. And the intent was to learn to do more porcelain work. And as he started getting hold of it, he flew, I'm putting flew in quotes, across the world. He is in every big recognized show at this stage in the world. I am just so honored to have his work in there. It's a slip cast piece. He previously folded the clay over and just made bowls that was closed in. These days he slip cast them, and sometimes he would put some color to it. But the place where it's coming from, you'll agree with me, his work is very quiet. His work comes from the computer industry, where he was making chips for the game industry and that kind of stuff. One of my favorite artists of all time. This guy, Michael Schweckman, I had an interview on my website. It's available on my website to listen to him. His family comes from the workers' people in the United States. He make a hammer from clay. He make a paint can from clay. He's always doing something that's real out there in the world, but he takes it out of context and he makes it to where you end up with a reference of the real product that's out there. He's very patriotic about the country. I've seen him many times making artwork with got the American flag on it, but never just like this. He's always putting some kind of a twist to the work. One of my real favorites. Pete's work is meticulous. He is such a fine craftsman and extremely knowledgeable. You see him in many magazine articles. He's constantly teaching. Obviously, he's a teacher. He's a professor of art somewhere in Nebraska, I believe. But what I do want to point out to you is that if you would ever have a chance to pick up one of these pieces and look at the underside of his work, the underside of his work could have been the upper side. That's as meticulous he is. Robert, we've seen him many times making these big bottles and big pieces. This time, he specially made for this show, he made us this set of work. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, we can actually take it off and sell them one piece by one piece by one piece. But then you're not going to have the whole thing. Sam, we are so honored to have you here. When you sent me your work, I was not sure what you're going to send me. I thought that you're going to send me a dragon, but you kept the dragons up to sea. We're going to see those tomorrow. So I'm not going to say much more. I just want to say that this piece is very delightful, and you're going to tell us more about the work tomorrow. This sculpture is from a lady by the name of Snell Scott. She's also a professor of art. I've been looking for a long time for somebody that can give us a strict sculpture class for teaching art, and I think we're going to bring her in. She's also a metal artist. She's specifically working in bronze. We were very fortunate to have her work. Right, there's Connie Christensen. She's another one of our instructors. She's doing a lot of functional works. She enjoyed that. She's a former firefighter. Connie liked those flames on the work. So there's not too much of that on there, but if you go look at some of her other works, you'll see that. Susan, that's such a delightful piece. It tells you everything about Mississippi women. You know, the Mississippi ladies, I cannot do that. Ah, for real? That's what those ladies are doing right now. It's just precious. I love it. There's Susan Thomas. Susan, your work is a delight. That's all I'm going to say. You're going to talk for yourself tomorrow.
I sketch out designs, but sometimes I do it unconsciously, just designing, and I get in this whole mindset of what I want it to look like, but then pretty much also having the freedom to just create from the unknown.
We're a community of artists, we're a community of collectors. I do want to end this thing with something that Bill Morgan said. Because of the constant exposure to narrative, I knew that the present was only part of my life, whether I was far from the peaceful shore dreaming of the sugar plum tree or trying to see the ghost of Lochnivar. Guys, let's up our work. Let's see what we know that's sitting inside of us and bring that forth. Let us, as Mississippians, go forth and give the world the best that we have to offer. Thank you.